A very warm good morning to my fellow colleagues. Myself, Anita Garrett, would like to extend a very warm welcome to the fourth day of the FDP on modern educational tools and pedagogical practices for online teaching, organized by Vidyalankar Institute of Technology. The prime need that unites us together here today on a virtual platform comes from the thought on a very well quoted line that reads, in learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn. In changing times, people have adapted themselves to changing trends. Work from home was never an option we thought can be given unto the teaching fraternity. But it was until the lockdown that we all had to shift from classroom teaching and embrace the virtual platform. We all had our set of challenges in doing so, but I'm sure we also had our victories over them. In true sense, by the words quoted by Mahatma Gandhi, we lived as if we were to die tomorrow and learned as if we were to live forever. We as teachers have not only upgraded our teaching methodologies but have learned various concepts by enrolling in a wide range of MOOCs, and my colleagues at VIT will surely agree to me. We are privileged today to have with us our speaker, Mr. Anurag Deep, who is a PhD holder in interdisciplinary program in education from IIT Bombay. He has completed his BSc in Botany, MSc in Environmental Studies, and BEd degrees all from the University of Delhi. He has also cracked the CTET, GATE, and UGC NET exams. Anurag Sir's professional experience consists of working as a teaching assistant in IDP at IIT Bombay. He has been engaged in assisting research projects, mentoring freshman year PhD research students, interns, and externals, workshop participants. Sir has been involved in various courses teaching the pedagogy for effective use of ICT and hence has created various resources for teaching learning using ICT. His research interests are in the field of education technology, development of problem solving process skills, bioscience education research technology, enhanced learning of thinking skills, e learning, learning science, etc. We extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, and I would now like to hand over the session to our speaker so that he can address our viewers about a very important creation of a MOOC.
Yeah, thank you, Naika, for my introduction as well as giving the background of what changed drastically in this COVID situation. So in today's session, what we are going to discuss is MOOC, about MOOC, how to create how to create the different elements of MOOC, and in order to aim for a good learning experiences for the student. The second part of the session is about the different pedagogical strategies which we as a teachers must be knowing, and we will revisit that, and also we will see how can we implement those pedagogical strategies in the given situation as well as in the online teaching. So to start with, uh, this session will be quite interactive. I can see a number of participants in the live comments. I expect all the participants to actively participate in this interactions. So this is not a typical presentation. This is more of an interaction because we all are teachers and we have been involved in the teaching learning scenarios. So and so in this session there will be there will be a number of reflection activities which we all participate, and you can respond you can respond by typing in the live comments. So let's begin what this session is about, and I will go back and forth between the sharing my presentation as well as viewing the live comments. So I will share my presentation. I hope everyone can see my presentation. And okay, so the session is titled How to Create MOOC. So I'm Anuragdeep and I am a final year PhD student in interdisciplinary programming education technology at IIT Bombay. Okay, so the overview of the session, what we just discussed. So the broad goal is to how to deliver content online. So online, I mean in MOOC. So which is related to the teaching, how to effectively interact with the student online, which is related to the interaction between a teacher and the learner, as well as how to assess students in the online environment. So we will discuss both the teaching aspect, the assessment aspect, as well as the interaction aspects. So the scope of this talk is to give you an overview in general and overall we are going to discuss that how to teach online effectively. So in this throughout this talk, I will use the term online teaching and MOOC interchangeably. So please don't get confused in that. So briefly talking about the scope of the talk. So what to expect in this talk? So we will discuss about the detailed overview of the essential aspects of the MOOCs. We will also talk about the strategies and techniques to effectively move from face-to-face to online teaching, and the different tools and technologies which are helpful in sustaining essential aspects of online teaching. So we will both talk about the overview as well as the strategies and the tools. So this talk is not about the detail of how to interact with the tools and technology, because there are a number of tools for doing a particular activity in online learning, for doing a discussion, for assessment, for creating video. We will not go into the details of those technical aspects. So that I am not, we will not discuss the prescription of effective teaching. So it depends. It depends upon the situation. So we will discuss the different aspects, and based on the topic which you are teaching, you can decide that based on the topic which you are teaching, you can decide which or what will be effective in a particular scenario and the topic. So this is the scope of the talk. So as Anita has very well mentioned about the change in the situation which has happened in this COVID. So this is an extraordinary situation and most of us were not prepared for this. So show empathy to yourself and your students. This situation has forced many of us to move to an online teaching or MOOC. So, and we should not focus on recreating the face-to-face classroom in an online environment, because there are many variables which has changed. We should not focus on we should focus on what according to us is crucial for the student to learn, and we should remember that right now we are shifting to an online teaching, while in the face-to-face classroom we used to interact with the student on a daily basis in a face-to-face environment. But now, since we have moved to an online teaching or MOOC, the interaction has changed to a daily, weekly, at a time, once a time. So there are some changes which has been there because of this online situations. So keeping in mind these changes, so a very common question which comes to our mind whenever we discuss about online teaching or MOOC. So there are two major aspects which we think, which we ponder upon frequently. One is, how do I teach online? Whether it should be synchronous or asynchronous. We all are aware of these two terms. The synchronous is basically a real-time interaction between a teacher and a student, which we do like yeah, which is very similar to the classroom. Asynchronous, where we give the student the learning material, where they can work at their own pace. So these are the two broad questions which as a teacher we face, that what should be the major component of this online teaching or a MOOC, whether it should be synchronous or asynchronous. So I believe that the answer is not really this or that way of online teaching, and we will discuss more in the detail in the coming slides. It depends. It depends on the topic which we are teaching. It depends on the technology affordances which our student have. It depends on the type of learning activities which we are giving the student to interact with. It depends upon the type of assessment questions which we are incorporating in our book. So it depends, and we will see why. So, in order to appreciate the complexity of the problem, the change in the situation which we are facing right now, so we will start with a small activity and try to find out the answer through that. So this is a very small activity, and what I will do is I will show you the slide, and you can answer. You can answer in whether which situation was difficult in the chat window. So I will pause at the slide for a few seconds, and then I will move to the next slide. So whenever you see orange slide on the screen, which means that you have to start working. You have to be involved. So till now I was talking. So this is a reflection activity that what, and it's a small reflection activity, and this is a part one of the activity. So you have to say the color. You don't have to read the word. So there will be, so I will stop at the slide for 10 seconds and look at the different words which is there. You have to say the color of the words. You don't have to read the word. So I will pause for a 10 seconds. Okay. So I think most of you have identified the different colors of the word. So let's go to the next part of this activity. This is part two. You have to do the same, repeat the same thing. You have to say the color. You don't have to read the word. Okay. So was there any difficulty in the two parts of this reflection activity, the part one and the part two? So you can quickly type in the chat window that was there any difficulty, or you were able to do the same in perform the same in both the part of the activity. So I will see what are your responses in the chat window. The two parts where we read about the two colors. Okay, in the chat window, I can see that we have mentioned the different colors. Was it difficult, or both the parts of the activity were at the same level? I want you to respond in the chat window. So you have mentioned the different colors. Okay, it's difficult, not easy. Yes, there was a little confusion in the second part. Difficult. Question was a bit confusing. Difficult in the second part in start on. Exactly. So I can see the terms difficult many times in the chat window. Many times in the chat window. So many of you have said that second slide orange difficult to describe the color, order, and words were different. Okay. So most of you have said that it was difficult, and especially the second part was difficult. So let's see why it was difficult. So it was difficult in the so this is what's happening with most of us. And we, as a teacher who wants to teach online or who wants to teach online through MOOC, because we will see in the subsequent slide, because we know the content, we know the teaching strategies, we know how to assess the student. But what's difficult is a little bit change in the situation. So let's see what changes it made. So all of us agreed that yes, the second part of the activity, which was this, was difficult because of the change in the color of the text as well as the term. And we all know about the colors as well as the terms. So what we are used to? So we are used to the face-to-face settings. The face-to-face settings which involve planning lectures or organizing courses, organizing different parts of the courses, how to chunk the different lectures. We are used to methods of classroom teaching, a face-to-face classroom teaching, which includes classroom discussion with the student, because it's a live discussion and we can quickly intervene in the discussion. We have also done the assessment of the student in the face-to-face settings. Assessment both in terms of the summative as well as the formative aspect, and I assume you all are aware of the formative and the summative aspect. Like summative is what we the assessment which is done at the end of the session or uh, academic year, or formative is what we do during the session. We encourage in student participation in the face-to-face settings. We respond to student questions or queries in the face-to-face settings. There are a number of student collaborations through projects which is done in the settings, as well as we get a visual cue from students' expression whenever we teach in a face-to-face classroom. There are also interactions with the student in terms of announcement and others. So we are very well aware of these different aspects in the face-to-face settings. These are nothing new. We all are involved in lectures, organizing courses, classroom teaching, facilitating classroom discussions, assessment of the student, encouraging student participation, responding to student question or queries, student collaboration projects, visual cues which we get from the student's expression, and we also interact with the student. So this is not difficult for us. Face-to-face settings we know, and it's known to us mostly. Most of the aspects is known to us. So let's go one step deeper in what happens in the face-to-face settings. So there is a constant oral communication between the teacher and the student through delivery of content and classroom discussions. There are visual cues, which is very important in terms of the facial expression of the student, the tone and the voice in the student. We get this in the face. We are very much comfortable with the structure and face-to-face practices in the face-to-face settings, and familiarity with the structure and common practices, and we are also familiar with the structure and practices in face-to-face settings. There is also another aspect which we should not forget: the social and emotional face-to-face oral communication, and it's a very rich medium and medium of interactions between a teacher and the student. So these are the intricacies of the face-to-face settings. And we know, we have experience, and we have already taught enough for last n number of years, and we know all these. But in the online settings, so remember the second part of the what we discussed, that we already know all these terms, yellow, green, blue, and we already know all these colors. So which color? They're like green, red, blue, green, red, black, violet, red, orange. So we know the terms, we can identify the color. We all are already aware of this. But it was a bit difficult for us, even after knowing all the aspects. In the online setting also, we have to include all these different aspects. Like we have to talk about the planning lectures, organizing course content. We also have to discuss the types of teaching methods which we will be using. These aspects are very similar to what we have done in the face-to-face classroom. We have to facilitate the discussion. We have to assess the students. We have to encourage students' participation, respond to student queries. We have to give some collaborative activity for the student, and we have to get the visual cues, maybe the visual cues in the film when we do the face-to-face synchronous lecture. Is it like online setting is unknown all these aspects? uh, I don't think. Yes, we know all these aspects, that we have to do all these aspects in an online settings. So where is the difficulty? So to go to one level deeper, so our aim is to improve the communication between a teacher and a student in an online settings, which we have been doing in a face-to-face classroom. The second aspect is we have to put in efforts to make the online communication a rich medium, a socially and emotionally rich medium, both socially and emotionally. There is an important uh, limitation of online teaching as well as in MOOCs, that and how to overcome that. The limitation of getting a visual cues and other cues which we were used to in the face-to-face classroom. We have to get comfortable with the structure and practices of online settings with consistent practice, and we have to make ourselves familiar with the structure and practices in online settings. So these are the aspects which we have to do. So most of the, as we have seen earlier, that most of the aspects we are already aware that we do in the face-to-face classrooms. Next, we have seen what are the challenges which we may face when we move from face-to-face to online teaching through maybe through a MOOC. So these are some of the challenges which we may face. So these are not unknown. We are already aware of these challenges. So how to mitigate these challenges and how to overcome these challenges. So these are the few aspects which are most important in an online settings. So so where to start with? So now we have seen that we are mostly aware, we are all aware of the different aspects in the face-to-face based on our experience. We see that the same aspects is to be translated in the online settings, but there are some challenges which we have to face, and we are so how to overcome these challenges. So remember, the title of the talk is how to create tools. So where to start? So there should be some starting point. So we should start with searching answers to some important questions. Questions such as how to teach online, how to interact with the students online, and how to assess students online. So these three important questions is the starting point, and we should start with this. Though these steps are not distinct, So they are there is an overlap as we do in the face-to-face classroom, because while teaching we have seen that there can be interruption by the student with a question, there can be some muddy points, there can be some discussion. So these are not separate individual explicitly separate circles. There is an overlap between these three. So an overlap between how to teach online, teaching, how to assess online, and how to do the interaction. So there is an overlap between these three in the teaching, assessment, and interaction. And there is a need to look at all these from a single lens because they all are interrelated, which we have already experienced in our face-to-face class. So now what is the basis of this? So why we are discussing all this? So this is a more of a theoretical aspect. I will not go into the details. So I will quickly give you an overview of what this is. And then we will analyze, there will be another reflection activity, a long one, where we will analyze the two types of two examples of a MOOC content, and then we will discuss more about this. So before that, I will quickly give you an overview of why it is important. So the basis of this design, teaching, assessment, as well as interaction, comes from a community of inquiry framework. So it is a powerful and a helpful framework. So the aim is to give a best educational learning experiences in an online learning to the students. So this was our broad goal, to improve the learning experiences. Uh, so the three aspects of this framework is the presence which is very important. The presence, with a broad goal of giving an education, good, engaging educational experiences. So the first one is the cognitive presence. The cognitive presence where we exchange information whenever we deliver content, maybe either through asynchronous or synchronous medium through video. We connect ideas while delivering content, and we also transfer these ideas to a new context, and we create a meaning out of it. So there is a cognitive presence which is required, which our students should be involved. There is a social presence which is required, where the students are encouraged to express themselves, to collaborate. They can also express their emotions while interacting with the teachers or doing a collaborative projects. Then the third and the most and an important aspect is the teaching presence. The organizing. So what we as a teacher do in the face-to-face classroom, like the organizing the course material, how we discuss model discussion, summarize the discussion, and provide timely feedback. So the important aspect of this online teaching is the three presence and the element of these three presence which should be there whenever we create online teaching or when we create a MOOC. So importance. So just to give you an overview of to go into a more detail that what is meant by a social presence. In social presence, the students have the ability to project oneself as a real social and emotionally what they do in the face-to-face classroom. The cognitive presence, where the students have the ability to construct knowledge through understanding individually and collectively. And the teaching presence, where we design, facilitate, guide students' learning to achieve the aspects, specific outcomes. So these three aspects should be there. So the yellow and this violet includes an interaction between the teachers and the student, while the teaching presence is mostly organized or implemented by the teachers. So I will not go into the details of all these different aspects. So this is a background of why the three we should always keep in mind whenever we are creating MOOC about these three presence: social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. So now we have seen that there are some presence which is required. So in the next activity, what we will do is we will, and we all are aware that there are a number of courses, online MOOCs, which are already present in the market, in the education, in the as an open educational resources. So in this activity, we will apply the things which we have already discussed till now. So what we will do is, this is a reflection activity and a longer one. So you should make a note of your points during the walkthrough. So again, an orange slide, which means you will have to work. You will have to start thinking about this. So what I will do is, I will show you the two courses designed by the two teachers, the two MOOC courses designed by the two teachers, teacher A and teacher B. And it is designed on Canvas, which is a learning management system. It's a two MOOC courses. I will show you the week, 1 week content of the two courses. So as a participant, what you have to do is, you have to evaluate the different aspects of the course, the MOOC course. I will walk you through the different aspects of each courses, and you have to decide that which course has a good design for an online learning, whether it's a teacher A courses or teacher B courses. You have to say yes or no. And you have to say you have to choose between teacher A, teacher B, or both, and you also have to give reason on why you are reason as well as justification of why you think that a particular course is good. So please keep a pen or a paper in your hand, and maybe you can type in your laptop also, and let's see what are the two courses. Okay, so this is a screenshot. So this is a course created by teacher A, and this is a screenshot of the Canvas learning management system 1 week course. So in this course, I will pause here for around uh, maybe 20 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. So remember the focus question, that first you have to identify the different elements of this MOOC course. Then you have to know those different elements. Then I will show you the next course created by another teacher, and you have to repeat the same exercise of identifying the different elements and noting the different aspects of it. The third part of it is comparing the teacher A course with teacher B course. So I will pause here for a 15 seconds. So this is a course created by teacher A on Canvas learning management system, and you can look at the uh, uh, different parts of this course in this week, two sections, as well as the to-do sections. So I will quickly pause here for 10 seconds. Please note the different aspects of this course on your paper, and we will discuss after, maybe after a minute. And you can respond in the chat window. So for the time being, please note the different aspects on the paper, the different aspects of a course created by teacher A. Okay, so I hope most of you have noted the different features of course created by teacher A. Let's see what teacher B has created. So I will pause here for a minute or so. What I would like you to do is go through these different parts of the course, especially the content of the week 2, as well as the to-do sessions which is included, section which is included. Kindly note your points on a laptop or a paper, then we will discuss. Okay, okay. So I hope most of you have noted the different aspects of course created by teacher A and teacher B. So let's vote. So the third part. Now you have identified the different aspects of the course created by teacher A and teacher B. So according to you, which teacher's course has a good design for an online learning? Is it teacher A, teacher B, or you think that both the designs are good? So please type your answer in the chat window. The next part of it is I'm going to uh, ask the reason for your choice. Why you have chose teacher A and teacher B. Please type in the chat window which of the what do you think which is a good design for an online learning, the course designed by teacher A or teacher B. So now I will stop sharing and I will look at the your responses. Okay. Okay. So as I can see that most of you have chosen teacher B, teacher B, teacher B, teacher B, B. Okay. So can we respond on that? What were the different parts of the course for the teacher A? Can we discuss in the okay? And also that why you think is teacher B as a good course? Can you type your justification in the comment window? The reason for your choice, that why you think teacher B has a good course design, the different aspects. So uh, I think it's not sufficient to say that has a good design, but what aspects of the course makes the aspects or parts of the course makes the course a good design? Okay, so there are answers like it's more student engaging and teaching the in the teaching learning process. B, since animation exercise to do activities to make students think they are home. Now, considering mentoring is support structure, mentor needs to respect teacher. Teacher A is more simple, student wants steps. Teacher B segregated the topics in between teacher and teacher is also evaluating the answers by making them involvement. Okay, provision of more interactions with the student, good number of activities, quizzes, to-do list. Okay, neatly arranged content. Teacher B has done good study of syllabus, planned well along with the money point. So the student can understand well even without teacher. Connected with the student, there is a social presence, cognitive presence, and the teacher presence. Assessment after every point and participation of the students. Okay, so what I can see from your responses in the chat window is basically you're talking about making the course more interactive, including the different assessment aspects in between the course, not as the cemetery aspects at the end of the course. It's also important, but also you have included in assessment in between the courses. While there is another response like teacher A started nicely, but later didn't continue properly, but teach correctly, which is not, but later did a good and started evaluating nicely, then content is good. Teacher B is also engaging the student also give a very in this prepared by teacher is more learner centric, more scope of learning engagement in terms of cognitive presence. Okay, so most of you have focused on the different aspects, the teaching, the assessment, and the engagement throughout the course, and they are not isolated. They are like an overlap which we just discussed. So let's see what I have. Okay, so we just discussed that what are the different, what worked and what didn't work. This is the teacher A interface part of the course. Many of you have said that what worked is a very simple course content, and what didn't work was the different aspects like assessment, engagement with the student throughout the course. The second part of the course, the evaluation on the course created by teacher B. What worked is most of you have said that the teacher B has made the learning more interactive, made the learning more engaging with the student. Teacher B have also included a number of assessment questions in between the course material. So let's see. So it's a course created by teacher A. So it is a series of video lectures, a long video which decreases in student engagement and attention. So just by giving the long videos is not sufficient, and students are often get bored with that. The student can see and listen to the teacher explanation. Yes, that was included. The social aspect. There was also a good point of additional resources which were included, that there is a list of additional resources, but no instructions provided to the student of what to do with those additional resources. There was no evaluation with this additional resources. There was a summative quiz for the week at the end by the course created by teacher. So we see that, and we already know that just by creating or providing videos, lectures, PPTs, or PDF reading material to the student will not result in effective online teaching. Just by giving them these video material, what we have to do is we have to make the learning experiences more engaging. Let's see how it has been done in the course created by the second teacher. So there were videos in the second teacher, but the videos has to be chunked. It should not be a long, lengthy video. So the importance of chunking. There were you can include a short formative assessment questions within the video. These formative assessment questions can be included by using different softwares like Edpuzzle, H5P. We will not go into the details of this technical details. Why we should include this is because student can assess their own learning progress. Teacher and the teacher can keep a track of whether the students are watching videos. There should be also be reflection spots like what has been done in this interaction, where you evaluate the two course type and you respond to that. There should be reflection spots where a teacher poses a questions in the video and thus asks the student to think. So there are technologies which through which we can include the in-video quizzes. For example, the Edpuzzle or the H5P. So it evaluates the student's understanding of the course content. Next, there were also the muddy points which were included by the course created by teacher B, which facilitated students' reflection. And there was a discussion forum where the student can pose their questions, the colleagues can answer those questions, their classmates, and teacher can monitor this discussion forum. And when you get responses from your colleagues, so you are improving your social interactions as you do in a face-to-face classroom. Not only that, the third part, which is problem solving, you have included, the teacher B has included the practice problems, the activity of demystifying fluids. Like there is a exploration which is there searching for information to make sense of the situation. There is an integration to integrate the two concepts like the Newtonian and non-Newtonian in the given course content. And the teachers are also asked, the students are also asked to post their work, comment, critique others' work. So there is a peer evaluation done by the student in the course created by the teacher. So these were the different aspects of the course created by the teacher. So let's go through it once more. So there were videos which were chunked, which had formative assessment, which may include the formative assessment. These videos had the reflection spots. There were muddy points where there was a discussion forum where the student can pose the question. Not only that, there was a practice problem where the student can solve their different problems, as well as they can discuss with their colleagues, they can explore new concepts, they can integrate the already learned concepts, and they can critique others' responses. So this is and there was also a very important aspect, which was the live session, the weekly live sessions, which is the social presence in an online or a MOOC setting. Okay, so till now we have discussed the different parts or aspects which should be there in a MOOC. So from now onwards, what we are going to discuss or see is the different technology tools which will help in these different aspects, the aspects of content delivery, aspects of engaging student, aspects of evaluating students, aspects of maintaining a social presence. So overall, if you want to create MOOC, there are a number of learning management systems like a Canvas, Google Classroom, Moodle, Edmodo, Schoology. So all of them have, uh, we can use any one of them to do the following. We can share a PDF, PPT, a reading material, videos aside. So the aspect like as an additional reading material. So we can do this. Besides this, it's not sufficient to just give students these things. Just let's recall that we are also focusing on answering three important questions: how to teach, how to interact, as well as how to assess. So just by giving PPT video is not sufficient. So what we have to do is we can choose to create or curate video when we address the first aspect, like how to teach online. The screencast we can do, and we will not go into the details of it. How to create videos? There are different types of videos, different ways. Like we can do a screencast, we can do a voiceover presentation, and maybe we can just record a video if you have a if you have a board, uh, a classroom board in your home, and we can do a video editing in an open shot and by different software like open shot or shortcut. So these are the different examples of the software which we can have, which can help us to create these videos. Besides this, we have also uh, discussed about the different learning management system, which can also help us in interacting with the student online. How to do this interaction? There is an aspect of announcement. We can announce, we can create or post assignment. There is an aspect of discussion forum to collect money points, and we can do a polling to know the student opinion about the issues and get their feedback. So these different aspects are there in the learning management system, which cater to the answer, which aims to answer the question of how to interact with students online. The third is there is also an aspect of live sessions. We can so all these are the different ways to do the live sessions. We all must be familiar with it, like Jitsi, Zoom, Google Meet, and Teams. So there is a, I mean, there are a number of, there are different upper levels of number of participants which can be involved in this. So these are the different examples of doing the live sessions. Next, the third aspect, how to assess. So the assessment can be done in all these MOOCs through an MCQ questions, a true false questions, open-ended questions, which can be done both as a formative or the summative. Remember that there is an important aspect of customized feedback which can be given, which should be given, and the feedback, not only the assessment question but also feedback in providing in the discussion forum to the students. There is a collaboration option in the Canvas if we are giving students to do, we are expecting student to do some projects. So, okay. So, and how to continue with how to assess the student online, there are different online labs, which we will discuss in the second part of this talk, like virtual labs, hostel labs, and simulations. We will discuss more about this in the second part of the talk. So what is the takeaway of the session or the interaction which we have done till now? The takeaway is, so before going to the takeaway, so let's do the takeaway in the live chat window. So type your takeaway in about creating an online MOOC and that what we have discussed till now. Then we will discuss and summarize the takeaway of this one session. So what I want you to do is your takeaway on how to create a MOOC based on what we have discussed in last 45 minutes. Please type your answer in the chat window. After that, we will discuss your takeaways, and I will summarize my takeaways with you. So the activity is to type your responses in the chat window about how to create MOOCs, focusing on what we discussed in last 45 minutes. Okay, so we are doing an activity on how to create an effective, engaging MOOC based on what we have discussed till now. So type your responses in the chat window. Okay, so I can see the takeaway like uh, teaching methodology for online carry discussion on WhatsApp group instead of discussion. Okay, so we are talking about the maintaining a social presence with the student. Course design should be structured with the student assessment. Definitely yes. Ways to make the process teaching learning more engaging. Okay, yeah, that's very important thing that we should aim for making this teaching learning more engaging. Delivering discussion forum, polls, quizzes, assessment, peer assessment. Yes, these are the important aspect that how to deliver, how to uh, facilitate and manage discussion forum with a focus question, polls, quizzes, make teaching learning, online teaching assessment engaging, daily in between assessment. The key aspect is to cover while creating. Key aspect teach interactiveness, online teaching, online video with interactive engagement. Yes, and it's very easy to create an interactive engagement in video because by the use of H5P and use of H5P, you don't have to know any technical details. You don't have to be from a computer science background to use that H5P open source platform. Small quizzes in between, conduct few lectures online, upload other videos, and feedback. How to create more. Okay. Assessment and virtual lab practicals. Yes, we will discuss about the virtual labs as well as how to do assessment online in the next part of this presentation. Uh, Take discussions on WhatsApp. Student will definitely respond and you can export the chat. Oh, that's a very good suggestion. But what we are so if you see an overview that we are discussing about an interaction, a social presence with the student, a constant peer assessment discussion forum. Okay, so I think we have discussed. I think most of you have responded to uh, all the aspects which I am going to discuss in the next part. Reflection points. That's a very important thing, especially if you are giving the videos and online quizzes. Design the course learning outcome, duration, and time. Okay, so let's see what I have as the takeaway for you, for me as a teacher whenever we are giving the creating on online. Okay, so to start with, we should always remember to aim for three essential elements in online learning: the teaching presence, the cognitive presence, as well as the social presence. Remember, remember this diagram. So the broad goal is to give an educational experience, a good educational experience to the student. We can aim for a cognitive presence, a teaching presence, and the social presence. There are a number of technology tools to sustain and include the elements of online learning management system like Canvas, video creation tools, H5P, virtual labs. And I will share you the presentation will be shared and you can check these two online important teaching online list. What to do before you think about the MOOC courses and why what all aspects you should care while running the MOOC courses. So this presentation will be shared. Okay, so my takeaway. Let's discuss what I have. So we will spend some time on this slide because this is a dense slide and these are the different aspects which we should also care, we should also keep in mind. The LCM design principles. The design principles for creating a MOOC. LCM stands for learner-centric. So on the left hand side, the content, I think you will be able to see my screen. That a MOOC, always remember that a MOOC is not just a collection of lecture videos. Instead, a MOOC is a balanced combination of various learning activities using the appropriate medium. It's not just a collection of lecture videos. The second takeaway for B as a teacher should be we should aim for repurposing. We should avoid creating new content to the extent possible. Instead, we should create the existing OER, open education resources, content suitable for your learning. The third is assimilation. Assimilation means evaluating student whether the student have understood the context or content. We should not just give materials for information dissemination. Instead, we should give targeted activities to ensure immediate applications. So we should give activities so that the student can immediately apply the content which they have learned. The next is chunking. Chunking is breaking the modules into smaller parts. We have already done this in a face-to-face classroom. We have to make sure that in an online settings, we do the chunking. Generic is don't create long lecture videos, thumb rule, or create continuous text. Instead, chunk them and seem specific. Chunk them by making a small videos, include an in-video. This is within this. Assessment, we should not limit to the auto-grade assessments, but we should also include open-ended tasks targeting intended learning outcome. We should always remember that how the open-ended, so we should always remember to include the assessment questions which is aligned to the learning outcome. Utilize peer reviews and performance rubrics to tackle the skills. Next aspect is the aspect of peer learning. Peer learning and learning which involves the learning with the student, the co-creation of knowledge. We should not just rely on teacher-centric knowledge dissemination. We should also design activities to exploit the benefits of the peer learning. Utilize technologies to enable these activities at scale. Technology can help us in the discussion, maintaining the discussion forum. Remember always to give a focus question for the discussion forum. The next one is the diversity. Ensure that you connect with the multiple types of the learning and provide learning material that addresses different background, expectation, abilities of the learner. So there should be additional resources for learners, for a high scoring learners, which they can go through, as well as if you want, you can include evaluation questions but non-graded to evaluate their learning from additional resources. The feedback is the most important aspect. We should not just say right or wrong on the answers. Instead, we should give a constructive and immediate feedback that helps the learner to improve their understanding, utilize technology affordances, and customize constructive and customized feedback whenever we are doing an online constructive and customized feedback in an online book. Response. So we should not be passive to the learner actions. Instead, provide a response to every learner actions. Do not assume that the learner will act in the same manner. Instead, envision that different learner actions and design customized responses. So we should aim for a customized responses as we do in a face-to-face classrooms to all the responses which they are giving in an online settings. Yeah, the last one is the sequencing, that we should not just include one video after the another as we have seen in the course created by teacher A. Instead, we should intersperse a related activity after each video. Don't repeat the same type of learning activity. Instead, we should vary the different learning activities. So example of learning activities is like in MOOCs, we can give an learning activity where the student can watch a video, the student can play with a simulation, the student can create something and upload their assignment on the learning management system. So we should vary the different learning activities in whenever we are creating the MOOCs. Okay, so this is a heavy slide, I know, and these are the different aspects which we should always keep in mind whenever we are creating an online MOOC. The slide will be shared, the different aspects, and the slide will be shared, and you can go through it into more detail. But for me, the takeaway is we should always keep the content, the repurposing, the aspect of repurposing, the aspect of assimilation, chunking, assessment, sequencing, responses, feedback, diversity, peer learning in mind. So these different aspects should be kept in mind. Uh, okay. So okay. So I will take a break at this point. So I hope that many of you have attended earlier session, other sessions in this other sessions in this 1 week long pedagogical, in this 1 week long sessions organized by VIT college. So what I expect you to do in the next activity is maybe uh, yeah, please elaborate repurposing. Yeah, okay, so there is a question on please elaborate repurposing, justify. LCM design principle, please elaborate repurposing. Okay, so the meaning of repurposing is you should not aim for immediately creating new videos because creation of videos, recording it is difficult, time consuming, as well as there may be lack in the quality, both audio or video. So the meaning, yeah. So the meaning of repurposing is if you find any education, any videos for your chosen topic on an online web, you can give a link to that. You should not, because creating a videos takes time, and if you are aiming for creating a video for all the topic, it will take you a lot of time, hell lot of time. So the purpose of repurposing, the meaning of repurposing is curate instead of create. Curate as much as possible. If you are satisfied with a curated video, please use it in your course. Don't aim for a creation. What you can do is you cannot just curate the videos. You can also include an in-video quizzes to make learning experiences more engaging. You can yeah. Uh, and you can check the responses of those in-video quizzes. So there is a question that, sir, there is a lot of content on one slide. Sorry, but it's difficult to remember everything in one time. Yes, I completely agree with you about the content of the last slide, the LCM design principle, because that's a summary. That's a takeaway of what we should always keep in mind whenever we are creating a learner-centric MOOC. I will share you the I will share you the link of the presentation as well as the link of an online teaching course which has been created by IIT Bombay, where you can get this slide and you can save it for your future reference. I will do that. While taking an online quiz, how to avoid cheating and malpractices. Yes, that's an important thing. And right now, uh, I don't have a clear-cut answer for that. But what I can suggest is you can include an open-ended question in that, and there are softwares where you can compare the the responses of the different students for the same open-ended questions. So that will help you to identify the plagiarism. Okay. So how do you encourage discussion in the forum? Very often poor responses to be considered for the assessment. Yeah. So that depends. That depends. So we will discuss about the discussion forum after the next part of this presentation. So till now we have discussed the overview of it. We have discussed that what okay till now what we have discussed is what changed from a face-to-face to an online setting. We as a teacher have a lot of learning experiences and we are already aware of different aspects in a face-to-face classroom, but we have to translate those different aspects in online learning. By translating, we should all we should always keep in mind the three different aspects: the teaching presence, the learning presence, as well as interaction. And there are some design principles which we should keep in mind whenever we are doing the online teaching or creating a MOOC, which was, as you all have said, that it's a very heavy slide. I will share you with the slide. I will share the slide with you as well as the link of where you can get the to-do list. It's basically a tip to a tip or a yeah, it's basically a tip to keep in mind whenever we are creating an online course. Okay. So till now we have discussed all these aspects. So the next part of the presentation, as the presentation has said, and as the title of this talk is, the first part was the how to create more. The next part is the different pedagogical strategies which we know and how we can implement those strategies which we already have done in a face-to-face classroom to an online settings. So I will switch to the next part of the presentation, and depending upon the time constraint, uh, we will see how much I can cover. So the next part of the presentation, again, it's an interactive session, so you all have to be involved in this in the different activities. So I expect you to respond to the answers. The next part in the chat window. Okay. So the next part of the presentation is about the teaching methodologies and pedagogical strategies. We are already aware about these different pedagogical strategies and we have implemented as a teacher in a face-to-face classroom. We will discuss some of those, the importance of why we should implement it, as well as how to do that in an online settings. Again, an orange slide to start with, which means you have to work. We as a teacher have to think. So this is a reflection spot, reflection question, where you have to think and respond in the chat window. So we all are teaching some context, some context, some concepts in our respective topics. So list the two ways or ways by which learners can delve deeper into the concepts. Learner can deepen their understanding. Learner can make connections between the concepts learned to their previous knowledge. So what you have to do as a participant is you have to think, we as a teacher have to think about the different ways we have done it in a face-to-face as well as in the online settings, the different ways by which we have can help a learner to deepen their concepts. We can help a learner to deepen their understanding of a particular topic. We can help a learner to make connection between the concept learned to the previous knowledge. So the different strategies which you have thought of, or the pedagogical strategies which you are aware of, which you have implemented. So please type your answer in the chat window. The strategies of making concepts understandable as well as implementable by the learners. So I want you to respond in the chat window. So now we are discussing about the different pedagogical strategies which we as a teacher have implemented in a face-to-face or online settings, which evaluates student understanding of the concepts, evaluates student connection between the two concepts. So what are those different strategies? So peer knowledge of the project-based learning, okay. Associative teaching, okay. We need practical knowledge of creating and less study, okay. Case study discussion through discussion forum, small interactive projects, okay. So and discuss some recent case study, okay. Case studies possible related with the concepts, okay. Learning by doing, okay. So I can see strategies like project-based learning, problem-based learning, case studies, gamification. So these are some of the strategies. So can we think of a smaller strategies like what we can do in a half an hour session or a 45-minute session? Problem based learning with real life application. TPS. I think TPS, the full form is think, pair, share. Flip learning, more interactive lessons. Topic was quiz and interactive session. Okay. So create new ideas, concepts. Okay. So can you think of how to connect the two concepts? Collaborative activities. That's great. Flipped classrooms. Okay. So what I can see is many of you are already aware of the different pedagogical strategies which you have implemented in your face-to-face classrooms. And the answers like project-based learning, problem-based learning, flipped classroom, think, pair, share, this represents that you are already aware, learning from real-life examples. Okay, so these are the different strategies which we are already aware of. Let's see what I have. Okay, so we have already discussed that strategies to construct one's own understanding. Strategies where we can ask a learner to draw a diagram. There was one response in the chat about the connecting it to the real life scenarios. Yes, we should recreate the real life scenarios. This is a very important pedagogical strategies. In a chat response, there was also a response on doing a mini experiments, peer discussion, debates, exposure to the concepts in a multiple way. So these are some of the strategies which you have already discussed and which I think is aligned to what I have written in my list. So in all those strategies, the most important aspect is what I think is this. We always aim that learner is doing something. Learner is doing something. Learner is doing something with their hands on and minds on. Hands on maybe if they are physically manipulating the objects, and minds on if they are manipulating a simulation or a variable. So always we should remember that we should make learners to do or involve in a learning activity which asks them to do hands on and minds on. Now, so what is the underlying principle? So the underlying principle is to construct their own understanding. The learner need to connect concepts and identify the relationship between them. So it's like we should facilitate the connection as well as integration of the different concepts. Concept one, as you can see in the diagram, that the different concepts are interconnected, and we should also connect it back to a real life scenario where, because in a real life scenarios these concepts are not isolated, they are interconnected. So this is a broad underlying principle which we should keep in mind. So besides this, there is a long list of how to facilitate. We can, and we will go into the details, but uh, for the time being, we will just go into the details of how to facilitate connections, construction of knowledge, which you have already discussed. We should ask learners to interact with the simulations, not just interactions, but the interacting by changing the variables, explain or reason the phenomena, connect experiment with the theory by doing the mini experiments, relate new concepts to the prior knowledge, and apply concepts. So we should ask learner to do these things. So why it's important? It's important because the learn interactive features and learning activities built around the simulation helps learner in understanding, engaging, and connecting the domain concepts. And we will see an examples in the subsequent slides, that how it is helping the learner to understand, engage, and connect with the domain concepts. Collaborative activities, so it can be given as a collaborative activity around the simulation, where and to help in social construction of knowledge, and we have already seen this. Drawing and simulating causal maps. Concept maps is a very important and easy to use learning activity which we can keep. And we will see two examples of causal map as well as concept map, and how these are concepts are interrelated. So overall, this is what we were talking about till now, is about an active learning. Active learning in what, where learners are actively engaged, they are doing something hands-on and minds-on. So active learning is an approach to a teaching learning whose goal is to engage students with the content via specific activities that gets the student to talk, write, reflect, and express their thinking. So students are involved. Students are involved in reflection. Students are involved in expressing their thinking. Active learning is something collectively referred to as strategies that make students do something, which we have already discussed, and not just listening to a lecture or watching videos. The active learning activities can be a discussion, drawing concept map, argumentation, and asking questions. So I think I will skip this slide, that there are research-based evidence that active learning works. So I will quickly skip this slide because of the time constraint. And okay, so what are the features of active learning strategies? So while doing active learning, students are required to elicit ideas and address. By eliciting idea, how we can do this? We can do this by asking them to devise a possible reasons for an explorations, observations. We can ask the student to figure themselves things out themselves. That, for example, the next step of the derivation. We can ask the student to express their reason explicitly. So these are some of the features of active learning strategies, and we will see how we can use these strategies in a very simple learning activities with simulation. There can be instances that active learning might not work, and if one of them is that if the activities is very trivial and do not require the student to do activities like draw, write, compare, evaluate, then student might not get the value in the activity. So takeaway thumb rule is, don't give students a very trivial activity where they just have to watch a video. They should be given something, a learning activity which requires them to do, compare or evaluate their own understanding. Second thumb rule is, either giving too little time or too much time may not show an effect and a significant learning gain. Too little time may not allow them to think on the details which you want them to think on. Giving too much time may lead to a distraction. The last one is, don't give too complex problem. We as a teacher know the students understand the level of their understanding. So the type of problems which we are giving should be to their levels. The nature of discussion around the problem might be too varied, but it might get hard to moderate. So three thumb rule is, the activity should not be very trivial. We should not give very much, and we should not give too much time or too less time. We should not give very very complex problems, which is difficult for a student to understand. So these are like 3 thumb rules for making the active learning work. Okay, now how to do that? So there are, so I will quickly. Okay, so now we have seen the importance of active learning. We have reflected upon the different ways we do active learning. We have done active learning in a face-to-face and classroom and online teaching. We are already aware about the different active learning strategies. So I will show you the list of strategies. Strategies which can be done without a technology, and I think many of us are already aware of this. Strategies which can be done with technologies, which in a teacher-led classroom, or strategies which can be done in an online self-learning environment. So I will show you the 3 set of strategies, active learning strategies, the pedagogical strategies. Many of us are already aware of this, and then I will show you the examples of some of the strategies. So the first one is the list of without active learning strategies without technology. Someone mentioned in the chat window about the TPS, think, pair, share, the peer instructions, the predict, observe, explain, the role playing, the problem based learning was also mentioned in the chat window, and the productive creative. So these are some of the strategies which we are already aware which can be done and which we have implemented knowingly or unknowingly in a face-to-face classroom. And these strategies are typically implemented without technologies. Next set of strategies are strategies which can be implemented with technologies like a problem solving or a problem based learning, which I saw a response in the chat window with a real data. Problem project based learning using wiki spaces and online discussion and commenting. The third set is a discovery with technology, a discovery learning with simulation, creating concept map using CMap tool. The third set of strategies. So right now, because of the time constraint, I'm not going into the detail of all these strategies. What I will discuss is the last 2 strategies, the discovery learning with simulation and the concept map tool, which we can implement while creating a MOOC. And I will give you 2 examples of it. And if there are any questions related to other pedagogical strategies, we will I will discuss it in the question and answer session, in the question and answer session. So let's start with what we have. So recall, quickly connecting to the first part of the of this webinar, that we discussed about inclusion of online labs or assessing students online by including the different virtual labs or Oscar labs. There are a number of labs which you may be aware of. For example, FET, O labs, Go labs, O labs. So these are the different labs which have simulation repositories, and you can very well include those repositories and learning activities in your MOOC. So these are mostly to assess students' understanding in an online settings. So let's take an example. So this is an example of a simulation. It's a simulation to teach about body mass index, and it's a FET simulation. And typically we are already aware that in a simulation there are many interactive features, there are many variables which a student can vary in an online in a simulation. So what's another important aspect is we should also include, if we are including a simulation in our MOOC, we should not forget to include the learning activities around the simulation. Like this is an example of a learning activities uh, around a simulation which discuss about the topic of body mass index. So you can see that there are some learning goals, and a student needs to vary some variables and identify the relationship of how these variables affect the body mass index. So while doing these activities, the students are actively involved in learning, understanding, applying the concepts of body mass index, the different concepts which are interrelated. They are also identifying the independent and the dependent variable in this activity. So, thumb rule is don't just give simulations in your online MOOC. You should also include learning activities around those simulations. There are a number of simulation repositories which I already discussed, like Oscar, GoLabs, FET simulations, NetLogo. There are simulation of Indians like OLabs. So you can choose, identify, and include the different simulation repositories in your uh, MOOC courses. So this is an example. So the broad aim is to construct your own understanding. The next part is the concept map. Concept map. I think you all are aware of the concept map. There is a tool of concept map which can be accessed online. It is collaborative. Two or three students can create a same concept map collaboratively online. There is also, you can explore this visual paradigm where you includes represents the relationship between the different concepts. Causal map. The next the next example is of a causal map. So this is an example of a causal map grouping. I think it's a free of cost open source where a student can identify the relationship between the different aspects of the different variables. This is an example of a body mass index, but a student can create uh, the different student can create the causal map for their own topic. So this is another example. The third one is a puzzle. You can include short puzzle quizzes in between your 10 modules. It can be a crossword, jumble word, short answer question. Make sure the thumb rule is make sure that the puzzle is related to the content they are learning, and you can use H5P to create a puzzle. So I still have 20 minutes for the tech. So the takeaway. So the takeaway is we should design learning activities to help construct their own understanding. So till now, what we have seen is we have seen that there are different pedagogical strategies in the face-to-face classroom, in an face-to-face technology-led classroom, as well as in online teaching strategies. Some of them are already mentioned by in the chat window, like project-based learning, problem-based learning, peer instruction, think, pair, share. I gave you three examples of simulations, causal map, concept map, which can be included in an online course in your MOOC. But there are some takeaways and things to keep in mind whenever we are including these strategies. We can discuss if you have any questions regarding the pedagogical strategies in the question answer session. But for the time being, let's see the takeaways for this. So you should always make sure that you design activities to construct the learner's understanding. If you are using simulations which are readily available for various topics, there are many simulation repositories. You should not, you should aim that learners go beyond watching and clicking buttons. There should be a focused questions around the simulation. You should make learners identify and manipulate variables. You should make learners to identify and the effect of changing variables. Curate simulation before creating. Creating simulation is very, very difficult. Instead, just go ahead and curate simulations. Make them explicitly represent relationship using concept map or a causal map, which we have discussed. So, okay. So these are some of the pedagogical strategies which we can implement using a simulation, concept map, or a causal map. Connecting it back to the diagram or the principles which was too text heavy. So how these pedagogical strategies fit into this diagram? So we have talked about the repurposing. Don't go ahead and create simulations. Instead, repurpose simulations and create learning activities around those simulations. We have also seen that we include learning activities which help them to assimilate the concepts taught in the simulation, concepts and relationships taught in the simulations. Uh, you can give the example of peer learning. You can give students to create a concept map or a causal map and ask them to critique. You can give it as an individual activity as well as a collaborative activity. You should always also remember to include a feedback whenever you are doing this pedagogical strategy, especially if with simulation as well as while creating concept map or a causal map. We have talked about the assessment aspect while giving the simulations. So, okay. So now what's remaining is is we should do a reflection on what we have learned till now. Reflection on how the last 1 hour talk or lecture or webinar is connected to the other set of talks which you have already gone through in this 1 week online teaching learning FDP course, which is organized by VIT. So the next activity is about a reflection on how the different topics which has been discussed on other days in this 1 week FDP course, which can be used, the learning of from where can be used while creating a MOOC. We will see and type your responses in the chat window. Then I have a final summary slide of how my talk is related to other talks which you have already attended and you are going to attend in the maybe tomorrow. So please type in the chat window on the learnings from other talks which can be incorporated and implemented while creating a so learnings not only from uh, this session but also from other sessions. So for your reference, I can show you. So these were the different sessions which was the part of this 1 week faculty development program. So there was a session on designing engaging digital learning experience on Sunday. There was a session on creation and delivery of open educational resources and knowledge of Creative Commons. There was a session on effective use of learning management system. Another session on how to create effective video lectures, captioned videos, and sessions on creating virtual assignments, different sessions on how to create assessment and evaluation tools, using of technology tools like pen tablets and G Suits, using of online teaching tools effectively. strengthening and student engagement to make interactive PPT. Also, there is a session of creating e-content, use of game simulations, using of H5P in creating interactive video. So, as part of this 1 week FDP program, you must have attended one session or the another. So, what I want you to is to reflect upon how the learnings from those sessions can help you in creating an online MOOC, which was the topic of discussion of today's session. So reflection on how you have already learned things you have learned in a different session, which can be implemented while creating an online MOOC, because the topic was to create an online MOOC. So comments like uh, make the sessions interactive and engaging. Okay, I think you must have methods and tools to make online teaching more engaging. Okay, various online teaching learning tools. Okay, you must have seen different online teaching learning tools in other sessions. Maybe those online teaching learning tools for evaluation as well as to make it more interactive. Earlier I used to prepare the online teaching as A, now we will prepare like teacher B. That's a very good reflection. I would suggest you to include, make it more interactive. Or you have, there was a session on tools for assessment. Now you are already aware of the different tools of assessment, asking close-ended questions. So can we reflect on things which we have learned in other sessions, yesterday, day before yesterday? Like there was a session on open educational resources. Can you connect it with one of the design LCM design principles? So what I can think of, that open educational resources can be connected to the design principle of repurposing, where we have discussed that we should not go ahead and create, we should curate. Blended teaching learning process, yes. Use of assessment tools, how to create opportunities for more collaborative. Yes, we have learned many of these. How to integrate in MOOC is the focus here. Yes, that is the focus. Because we have already gone through the different aspects as part of the different courses. But here is we have to bring it together as a knowledge of together as a interactive and effective knowledge of licensing system. Yes, definitely. There was one session on Creative Commons. Session by Anita ma'am gave us information on Mentimeter, online poll, taking feedback, how to make online PPT. Yes. So you, by session Anita Divakar, who is my colleague, you got to know about the different technology tools like Mentimeter, how to take feedback, licensing, Creative Commons, prepare and practice, know how to build the tool, Mentimeter, Creative Commons. Okay. A knowledge of license was also given, which was useful. Yes, the different types of licensing like CC by SA and Creative Commons. Okay, learn to prepare online teaching course. How to structure should be the assess and interact with. How to structure should be to assess and interact with the students. Okay, so based on the responses in the chat window, I can see that we have already discussed the different aspects in fragments, like how to curate in terms of open educational resources, use of technology tools like Mentimeter, and give some examples of variables in any educational research study. Definitely, I can give you, but I think that is beyond the scope of this talk. And a simple example could be the effect of an interactive video watching on a student's learning, the broad one. And we can have a discussion on that. Stimulation repository. Okay, so let's see what I have as a connection of how this session is connected to the overall learning. And many of you have already pointed about this. Okay, so how this session is connected to the other talks. So there is a teaching aspect, there is an evaluation aspect, there is an interaction aspect, and there is a technology too. So there was a session on designing and engaging digital learning experience. I think that session was taken by Dr. Samir Sasrude, who is my colleague, to how to create an engaging digital learning experiences. There was another session on teaching methodologies and pedagogical skills, the session which the second part of my talk. The creation and delivery of open educational resources, knowledge of Creative Commons, licensing, and how to create new. So this session and these four aspects are not mutually exclusive. There is an overlap between all these sessions. We have also learned about the open source and effective use of the LMS, how to create effective video lectures and capture videos. So we had one session on that. There was another session on evaluation, that how to create a virtual assignment, quizzes, polls, different assessment and evaluation tools, and session on which focuses on technology tools like examples from G Suite, Google Suites, pen tablets, online teaching tools. I think Professor Dr. Anita Divakar took that session. Interactive PPT, how to create e-content, use of games, simulations, and there is another session tomorrow, which is how to use H5P in creating interactive video. So this session is like an overview of how to integrate and implement our learnings which we have done, which we have got in another session, and create an engaging learning experiences while creating MOOC, which we have seen while creating MOOC. Always remember, thumb rule, always remember to think about the social presence, the cognitive presence, the teaching presence in the different modules of the MOOC which we are going to create. Social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. Uh, I think it's 12:50. I will stop here and I will take your questions. If you have, please type in your chat window. And if you have any clarification or suggestions which is expected from me, or anything which you want to ask regarding creation of MOOCs and LCM design principle, the slides will be shared, and if not, will be shared by the organizing member, or if not, it is available on my website. If you will just Google Anuraghi IIT Bombay on my and you can see my website and you can check this slide, especially this diagram, because I had a number of questions on ultimate design principles. I know that this slide is too dense, but this slides includes like thumb rules, a takeaway on the different principles of how to create an engaging online MOOC. So I will skip the full screen mode and I will see the chat window now if you have any questions.
Uh, so thank you so much for your interactive session. We have got some questions which I've collated right from the beginning. So I can just read
Okay,
those out and you can just address the viewers on the same. So first and foremost,
sure.
our viewers have really liked the session. The comments read that it's a very interactive session, and they are gaining a lot of insights from how to prepare for online lectures, how to create online MOOCs. But certain queries are the
Mhm.
first query we have from our viewer, Mamta Patrikar, and she is asking that can you tell her about how to upload an online theory paper and evaluate it?
Can you repeat the question? How to?
How to upload an online theory paper and evaluate it.
Uh, okay, I mean, by theory paper means, okay, so what I can understand from this question is how to upload an online theory paper and evaluate it. Okay, so I'm assuming that the theory paper which you are talking about is examination theory paper, which you like. It's a 100 marks or 80 marks or 50 marks question paper, where the student have to type, where the student write like one paragraph answer. So this is my assumption of answering the next part. So uh, you are talking about evaluating an open-ended question. So this can be done in Google Form. As a simple technology can be simple technology like Google Form can be used. So there is the option of open-ended questions where the evaluation can be done automatically based on based on the keywords which student write in their answers. So where in an open-ended question, while providing feedback, you can specify the types of keywords which you expect a student to write in answering that questions, and the Google form will automatically evaluate those answers based on matching of those keywords with student responses and evaluate rate the student responses. I should say that yes, that is not as effective as what is done in a face-to-face and manual evaluation, but yes, that is quite effective. The second aspect you should also remember is that evaluation, you can do the setting of immediate response, immediate feedback, as well as delayed feedback. Immediate feedback means once the student answers the first question, they will get the immediate feedback. Delayed feedback means once the student answers suppose 10 set of questions, they will get the feedback after 10 questions. And you can also do a setting of getting this feedback, emailing the feedback to the students. So remember these three features of the very simple tool like Google Form in evaluating open learning, open-ended questions. Yes,
Thank you,
next
sir.
question.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Lakshmi Ravishankar.
Mhm.
And the viewer wants to know that how does one encourage students to participate in discussion forums, because that's one point what they have found that the response is very low.
Mm.
So how do you encourage students to do that?
Yes. Uh, Frankly speaking, maintaining discussions and involving all of them is difficult even in online mode, as you must have seen in a face-to-face classrooms. Some thumb rule to do in the discussion forum. First one is have a focused question, that what exactly you want the students to discuss. The second one is have a mentor or a moderator who moderates the discussion. Third one is give immediate and personalized feedback on a response which is typed by the student. Fourth one, ask include the peer evaluation. Ask fellow colleagues to evaluate other students, because when the student evaluates their responses in the discussion forum, there is more engagement as compared to when a teacher is giving a response. So these are the four quick thumb rule which we should include to uh, maintain interactions in a discussion forum.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, sir. Next question is from Fatima Ansari, and she wants to know that how do you create a poll in Google Classroom?
Poll in Google Classroom. I'm not quite sure about that, but what you can include is a very simple technological tool without no without having an advanced computer knowledge. You can include you can add an add-on in Google Slide. The add-on name is Peer Deck, Peardeck, Peer Deck, which can be included in the Google Classroom, and that Google Classroom can be Google Slides, and that Google Slides can be embedded in a Google Classroom. So I think that's one way how you can include a poll in the Google Classroom. Add an add-on in Google Slides. Embed that Google slide in Google Classroom.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. And one final question for the day. Uh, Professor Anjali Deshpande wants to know
Mm.
that how can we use resources available at Oscar because the registrations are not possible due to a bad getaway.
Regarding Oscar, I have to. Okay, Oscar is Oscar. I think I'm assuming you are talking about Oscar IITB. So the PI was my PhD advisor. Is my PhD advisor, Professor Sahana Murthy. So if it's not accessible, I will quickly check in the backend why it's not accessible. So that's the only response I can give it right now about the Oscar.
Okay, sir. Thank you so
Uh,
much. We will end the questions from now. I think you also have addressed quite many questions simultaneously. So I've just picked up the ones which you could not address right from the beginning. Thank you so much for your
okay.
talk. You have briefed us about how to conduct sessions on Zoom, Google Meet, on MS Streams. You have taught us how to design learning activities like puzzles, quizzes, which is really important for online teaching. And there are so many more inputs. We also have understood the three main aspects of online teaching, that is social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. So thank you so much, sir, for delivering such a stimulating talk, engaging our viewers, having interactive sessions with them, so even we can learn from your delivery. How do we engage our students also? So thank you so much, sir, once again, and we hope to have you again in future in VIT physically.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would now like to call upon Professor Ambadas Deshmukh to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay.
आवाज आवाज येत नाही आवाज.
A very good afternoon to everyone present here. On behalf of the entire Vidyalankar fraternity and on my very own behalf, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Anuragdi for sharing with us your opinions. Thank you, sir. I would also wholeheartedly thank all the delegates for their active participation. On that note, I would request all to fill in the feedback form for this session, which is available in the chat box. Please join us once again today at 2 p.m. Thank you.